Hello friends, my name is Doug. Welcome to Third Stall Garage. This playlist is about the restoration of a 2010 Subaru Forester named Ruby. Rebuilding, refreshing, restoring, whatever word you want to use, an engine out of a parts car to go into it. If you haven't watched the previous episodes, you want to enjoy the story of this project and me learning, I encourage you to subscribe, go back, watch the previous episodes. Previously, I pulled all of the pistons out, just hand checked the connecting rod bearings for any slop or play. There was no rod knock in it. Cleaned all of the grooves and the rings on the pistons and reassembled everything. Sent the heads off to the machine shop. Thought I was all ready to begin reassembly, and I decided to go a little bit farther. Let me explain why. One of the challenges in this kind of work, at least for me, is where do you stop? You know, how much money do you pour into it? It's a daily driver. How far do you keep going? I made the decision not to split the block and put new crank bearings in. I feel good about that decision. I had made the decision to reuse the original rings. None of them were cracked. I didn't see any problems with the ring grooves or ringlets. And so I put it back together. And then some online discussions and some reading, and some guys are like, I always put a fresh set of rings in. I'm like, why? Do they wear out? Do they go bad over time? And the general response was, after that many heat cycles, they will slowly lose their temper, lose their spring, not seal quite as well. They're not that expensive to put in. So here I am. I have a new set of Male, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it or not, rings. They were less expensive than Subaru OEM rings, but still had good reviews. I think they're a top quality producer. I forget now if it was like 60 bucks for a set of rings. So I'm gonna pull these out to put new rings in. I will check the gap. I did check 2 of them already and they were in spec, which is good because I don't have a ring grinder to set the gap, but I will check and verify the gap. And while I have the pistons back out, I'm gonna put a light hone crisscross hatch pattern on the cylinder walls so that I'll have a fresh cylinder wall surface to match the fresh rings. Now it's coming back apart again. I think that's as far as I'm gonna go, and then I'll start reassembly. There is no way to know how far it would have gone if I had run the stock rings, whether this is a waste of money and a waste of time, or whether I just got another 50,000 miles out of the engine. Who knows? All right, let's start removing the snap rings and the end of the wrist pins and knocking the pins out and pulling the pistons out. So here is kind of the condition of piston number 1. You can still see the cross hatching on it, but a little bit of a shine and a polish to it. This one's got dirt in it. I haven't wiped it clean yet. This would be, I think, cylinder number 3. But I'm going to start with this one. There is very little lip at the top. In fact, I can't catch it at all with my fingernail. So that's good. So I'm getting ready to hone cylinder number 1. I've got one of these honing tools. I actually bought one, then realized that O'Reilly's will loan them for free. This happened to be a brand new one. I was the first one to ever borrow it from them. Cylinder number 1 is cleaned out. I've wiped it down. There's no grit in there. I'm doing this with the crank in. Obviously you can see that it's still here, maybe not obvious. The crank is still in. I did not split the block. I don't know if this is a horrible mistake or not. I've been wrapping my head around it. The risk is the stone will wear off some material, and it will wear off some material off of the cylinder wall. And I don't want that grit to get into the crank and the crank bearings. Normally, I've seen a lot of people do this with just the bare block. They hone, then they flush and wash and get all of that out. I've decided, whether right or wrong, to not split the block. So I've turned the block so it's facing up a little bit. I am going to use WD-40. This is my brother's in case he's watching. And I'm going to spray liberally the cylinder walls and the honing bar. And I'm just going to tip it this way and then flush it out so the majority of the grit comes out. Once I'm all done, I'll spin the thing over and then flush the whole crankcase liberally with brake fluid. And then kind of, rinse it out as best I can. So here we go. Haven't honed before. Kind of fun to do something new. You want to put your drill on a slow speed. You want the stones to go in and out slowly. Sorry, talking and thinking is a hard thing for me. Thinking is generally just hard. You can adjust this collar, which controls your spring on the bars. One of the things you don't want to do is stick your bars, the honing bars in, and then drag them out, because that will leave little vertical scratches in it. But we'll see. I'm going to make sure that each stone is coated. I also have the crank turned in such a way that this connecting rod is all the way back in. So we're going to do this just a little bit and then pull it out and check it and see what kind of a difference it makes. All right, want to check it out? Okay, so that was literally like 10 seconds of honing. I mean, you saw all of it. And there are fresh scratches that look nice, but it does not look like the whole surface is freshly honed. So we're gonna do this a little more. All right, let's turn this up and take a look at it. All right, this is a little hard to see precisely, but you know, it's looking kind of pretty. It does look a little, I wonder if I could actually stick my phone down in there. It does look like I hear people say that the cross hatches are supposed to be 45 degrees. This does make me think my scratches are a little bit too shallow of an angle. Like I need to go in and out faster to get a little bit more of that 45-degree angle. I'm going to do that a touch more, but I don't think I'm going to do much more than that. Hi, I just honed it a third time and forgot to turn the video on. I only did it for about another 15 seconds, a little faster in and out, and I think the scratches in it look a little bit better. I'm feeling pretty good about that, so I'm going to flush it with WD-40, and then I'm going to move on to cylinder number 3. And I will have to turn the crank in order to get the cylinder number 3 connecting rod to go all the way to the recessed position so it doesn't hit the honing bar. Hopefully I'm doing a good thing. That's looking kind of pretty. I like how that's turning out. All right, one more to go. I know I said I was happy with that honing job, but the more I looked at it, the more you can still see some of the reddish tinge of the old surface yet there. So I decided to go back in and hone again, and I did this one for probably another 20 seconds. And I like how this one looks. This one I feel like looks better than that one. Obviously, I'm a little worried about overdoing it. I don't want to remove too much material and start to have, you know, remove important material. But I feel better about how this one looks than that one. So I'm going to go back to each of them, the other 3, to make them look like that. That was really clear. I hope you understood what I meant. Okay, cylinder honing is done. So you can see, if you're observant, piston number 1 is back in. Ignore that. I went through a little bit of a learning curve off camera. The whole intent of tearing the pistons back out was to replace the rings. So here's an original ring. Here's a new ring. And there are a couple things that I'm pondering. One of them is, I assume a new ring has gone through less heat cycles, may have lost some of its spring, may be a little bit more worn. An old ring might not seal as well. So I expected the gap in the ring. Now this is completely unknowledgeable. This is just me guessing at things. The gap in the ring to be smaller because the ring had lost its spring compared to a new ring. And what I actually find is the new ring on the bottom has a smaller gap. The other thing that struck me is I take my dial calipers and check the width of these rings. This is 47 thousandths on the old ring to 47 thousandths on the new ring. They're the same thickness, which is good. The groove in the piston's the same. But it's interesting that call it the body of the ring, I don't know, the depth of the ring maybe, of the stock ring is 142 thousandths. I'm sure it's metric. I've got it. Hold on. I'm about 141 thousandths. And on the new ring, I'm at about 131 thousandths. So it's 10 thousandths less material. So that made me a little concerned. I'm putting in a ring that's a little less beefier, or so it seems. So that gave me pause to stop. The other thing I wanted to check is the ring gap. So let me do that a second on this. Put it in, the cylinder wall was cleaned. I'm going to use the piston to push it down to a standard depth. Also to make sure that it's square. Okay, so this is the original ring. And it is the original top ring. I'm going to fast forward and give you the results. So what I found was the ring gap when it's in the cylinder wall, the gap between the two ends of the ring on the new rings are pretty consistent. I'm at between 16 and 18 thousandths on the second ring, between 13 and 14 thousandths on the top ring. On the original rings, on the second ring, both of these cylinders were right at that 13, 14 thousandths mark. But on the top ring, on cylinder number 1, I was well over 20 thousandths. Long and the short of it is I think that I will sleep better at night knowing there are new rings in, even if the new ring has a slightly smaller depth to it. So I will put cylinder number 3 together here, put it in, rotate it over, put cylinders 2 and 4 in with the new rings. I will check the ring gaps there as well and finish the assembly. All right, last piston is going in. Cylinder number 4. The ring expander on. If you don't have one of these, they're a pretty cheap little tool. This is not an expensive one. I've had it for about 25 years. It just simply compresses all of the rings into the piston grooves, and you can take the back end of a hammer and they slide right out of this ring into the block. Now it's time to line it up. Hello friends. Obviously I'm dressed differently. This is later. I was in the video editing process for this one and realized that I never finished filming the video. So as you can see in the previous clip, I put the fourth cylinder piston in the cylinder, and at some point realized I had made a mistake. And I put a big note in the video there that if you want to read carefully, you can. Make sure that you have the piston in the ring compressor all the way up. My bottom oil ring was hanging just below that ring compressor, so it did not compress my bottom ring. And then when I pounded the piston down in, it bent the ring tab over. So, not the ring tab, it bent the cylinder ring over. You can see there's a twist right here. And so this part of the ring was outside of the piston and got wedged in between the piston and the cylinder wall. And it did put a small scratch in my cylinder wall, which obviously is no good. I freaked out, kicked myself in the butt, and beat myself up internally in my head for a while. Panicked, called some friends, did some research, and from what I learned, was told, is that a scratch in a cylinder wall is far worse than having a cylinder that's a couple thousandths larger. So I ended up honing my fourth cylinder out fairly significantly. And by fairly significantly, I didn't track it, quite a few minutes. I don't know if it was like 20, 30 minutes honing significantly, and kept putting my number one compression ring back in and measuring the gap, and I could watch that gap slowly grow. I read online that for every like 3 thousandths that, I didn't do the geometry on this, but I did read it somewhere, for like every 3 thousandths that the gap in your ring grows, the diameter of the piston grows about 1 thousandths. So it's like a 3 to 1. So I could realize that even though I was honing for a long time, I only really increased the diameter of the cylinder by, I think it was like a couple few thousandths, not a whole lot. Fortunately, the scratch was not real deep. I did get it to the point where I could visually just see the scratch. I could not really feel it, really hardly feel it with my fingernail anymore. Had I not known it was there, I was looking at it, feeling the cinder wall, I never would have found it. It does mean my ring gap went from being like in the 13 to 15 thousandths range into the 18 to 20 thousandths range, which I think I'm willing to live with. The ring will expand to fill the cylinder wall. Long and the short of it is, that's the situation I've got in my fourth cylinder. I'm feeling okay about it. I'm still a little frustrated with myself for having made a mistake. I did go back to my original set of rings and grab one of my stock original, my lowest oil expander ring, oil wipe ring, oil scraper ring, whatever they're called. So my fourth cylinder now has 3 brand new rings and a 4th stock one in it, which will be just fine. I'll keep this for a memento on the wall of shame and lessons learned. So that's going to wrap up this video. And I am close to the point of doing a compression check. Nope, not a compression check, a leak down test on the engine to see if I've corrected the cylinder 4 leak down problem that I had, the low results in the leak down test. So that will be next episode. Stay tuned for it. It'll be out in a week or so. And thanks for being part of this, and have a great day. Be kind to each other. Say hi to your mom. Have a good night.